Viewer beware.
Woo! That was really tight for some reason. Welcome back to Viewer Beware, the only show where we go over each and every episode of the 90s Goosebumps TV series, and today, a very special episode with Haunted Mask 2. And what makes that so special, it's our first sequel episode. Well, technically, Night of the Living Dummy was a sequel, but we didn't see the first part. But this is our first true sequel to an episode we watched before. Exciting. Now, the art of the horror sequel is kind of hard to perfect, because you don't want to keep doing too much of the same, or else you'll end up like Final Destination, where you just kind of keep doing the same thing over and over and over again until you just kind of stop. And you don't want to completely change the formula, or like add in sci-fi elements, like why are we going to take Jason to space? Why do we have brain scanners in The Exorcist 2? It doesn't make any sense. It alienates what made the original work. Now, can Haunted Mask 2 break this trend of sequelitis we see so often in the genre? Who knows? In the Haunted Mask 2, we rejoin Carly Beth as her school bullies try to find the perfect costume to scare her on Halloween night. Sure, we've seen it before. We saw the first one. But have we seen it with a kid speedrunning his way to an AARP card? I think not. So, everybody grab your drinks and mask up, because it's time for Haunted Mask 2. Much like the first entry, we have an intro from R.L. Stine himself.
Viewers beware, you're in for a scare.
Carly Beth makes her triumphant return to the series, walking home from a costume party after showing off her two-headed girl costume using the ceramic head she got last year. On the walk home, Carly and her friend are stalked by Chuck and Steve, but she gets the jump on them before they could scare her. The boys are incredibly upset that since last Halloween, it's been impossible to scare Carly Beth the way they used to. Steve knows he could scare her if he had a mask like Carly did last year, but she refuses to tell them the store for their own safety. Even more upset at this, Steve snatches the ceramic head and plays keep away with it until she reveals the name. Carly's friend Sabrina takes action and snatches the head, and the girls walk off. It's also worth noting that in addition to Catherine Long and Catherine Short, yeah, that's really their names, Catherine Long and Catherine Short, reprising their roles as Carly Beth and Sabrina. But we also have another Viewer Beware alumni with Steve, played by John White from Cuckoo Clock of Doom. Anyway, on the way home, Carly Beth tells Sabrina she buried the mask in a place that nobody would ever find it, presumably taking it off her little brother before it could become permanently stuck to his face. But the mask's ears must have been burning, because as soon as Carly Beth mentioned it, it rises from its grave and floats off into the night. At the mask store from last Halloween, the shop owner is burning all of his mask creations in a hurry before he's interrupted by the signature green mask, revealing the spirit of Halloween has brought it back.
It's just as I feared, isn't it? Yes. Halloween has brought you back. I will stop you.
After the scuffle, he awakens with a mask stuck to his face and walks out of the store. The next day at school, Steve is bummed because it's Halloween and he has no costume. And this might be his last Halloween to scare people.
Next year we're gonna be too old for Halloween.
It's okay by me.
Well, it's not with me. Life's passing us by, man. It's just passing us by. There's stuff we gotta try. The years go by, and before you know it, you're a drooling, disgusting old man.
Nothing says Halloween like the fear of aging into a slow death. Anyway, the boys are distracted from their Halloween woes when they see a man wearing Carly Beth's old mask pop up in front of the school. Not missing the opportunity for a scary mask of their own, they chase him all the way to a closed novelty shop. Not to be deterred by a boarded up storefront, Steve decides to break in through the back, but Chuck is too scared to loot the joint. After searching through boxes of Halloween junk, Steve finally finds the perfect old man mask and hides it in his jacket before taking off. At home, Steve takes his stolen goods directly to his room and tries it on in the mirror.
Yes.
Before his mom interrupts, forcing him to hide the face. At Carly Beth's house, she is preparing her duck costume for the night of trick-or-treating when the mask creeps outside of her window. But without noticing it, she heads out into the night and hits us with the famous duck walk.
Do the duck walk, Carly Beth. I love that. It's gonna be such a great Halloween.
So you want to learn how to duck walk? Okay, so first things first, you gotta kind of arms. All right, that's the main part. Arms. That's the wings. Your knees to flare out with the wings. Okay, and then you hands up, hands down, but you're still pumping the legs. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2. Hit the duck walk, Carly Beth. After we're all duck walked out, Chuck finds the girls and lets them know that he's not sure what Steve's costume will be after they visited the shop. Carly Beth, obviously worried that Steve got himself in trouble, asked what shop they went to and if they went in. But for some reason Chuck lies and says Steve never went in the store. At Steve's place, he sneaks the mask out of the house by saying he's going to get dressed at Chuck's, and he runs into the night to get ready to scare his first victim, Chuck, who's now walking all by himself.
Who are you? Don't be afraid, fellow. Come closer.
Is that you, Steve?
There's no Steve.
I know it's you, Steve. I can tell from your clothes.
Okay, despite the initial jump, it doesn't really look like he's having a huge scare impact here. At least until he grabs Chuck. To laugh off the encounter, Steve removes the mask again, which as we the viewers know, means he can't take it off another time. Steve tells Chuck that he stole the mask from the store, but Chuck gets excited at the thought of scaring people for real. So Steve throws the mask back on and his voice more noticeably changes to that of an old man.
How are you doing that voice?
What voice? It's my own voice, you jerk.
Steve then goes running towards a group of trick-or-treaters and just steals their candy, which I guess getting robbed is scary, but that's mostly just like a dick move. Steve then chases a few more kids before getting so tired he can't keep going. He decides he needs more energy, so he just starts devouring the stolen candy, grossing out Chuck and overall putting the whole vibe off with his attitude.
Listen, man, if you're gonna be flipping out like this, I don't think I want to be around, okay?
What are you talking about?
Steve mocks Chuck until he leaves without him, and Steve goes back to scaring. Chuck, upset about this, finds Carly Beth and Sabrina, letting them know that Steve got a new mask that's making him act like a total chode. Carly Beth knows she has to save Steve before his new face becomes permanent. Meanwhile, Steve is progressing more and more into a spider-covered old man, and can't even walk without a cane. When he finally tries to take his mask off, he notices it's stuck to his face, and he tries to get some random kids to help him take it off.
What do you want?
My mask. Help me take it off.
Let's go. He's just some old drunk.
The kids try to grab the mask off of him, but let him know there's no line at the neck of the mask, and run off instead of getting tricked by an old man into taking his shirt off. After they can't find Steve anywhere, Carly Beth takes everyone to the mask store, hoping that Steve came back there. She lets the group know that all Steve needs is a symbol of love to get the mask off, but quickly becomes distracted when she feels an evil presence. Meanwhile, Steve is still off in the night transforming before the old green mask confronts him.
Your face, so old, so hideous, so perfect.
Who are you?
He tells Steve to get the ceramic head from Carly Beth's house and bring it to him in the graveyard, or else his mask will stay on forever. Steve, playing into his old man persona, goes to Carly Beth's house and asks her mother for a glass of water. But while she's distracted, he sneaks in and grabs the head. Steve brings the mask back to the graveyard at the same time as Carly Beth and the others decide to check it out. The old mask tells Steve to smash the head so he can finally take over Carly Beth, but Steve refuses. This causes the old mask to force spiders to crawl underneath Steve's skin as torture, until he can't take it anymore and finally smashes the head. Soon afterward, Carly Beth is confronted by her old mask again and held back by Steve.
You will wear my face forever.
Just before the mask tries to launch itself at Carly, Steve throws her away and takes the attack head on. At that moment, the shopkeeper that had been possessed tells Steve to remove his mask right away, and it just slips off. The shopkeeper tells Steve that sacrificing himself for Carly Beth was his symbol of love, and depowered both of the masks.
Boy, this is a little too deep for me.
A wading pool's too deep for you, Chuck.
After the mask fiasco is settled, all the kids go back to Steve's house to count their candy and toss their haunted masks into the fireplace.
Here we are, nice and hot.
So the mask came alive again, just to get buried again, which we can assume would come back alive again next Halloween, for many, many sequels in the future. Except those don't really happen. In fact, the only other entry we get in the series is in 2008, a book called Scream of the Haunted Mask, which takes place the exact same time as Haunted Mask 2, so the canon of it is kind of in question. And speaking of canon, what happens in the book and what happens in the episode are really, really different. In fact, the original Haunted Mask barely makes an appearance. I don't even think it does make an appearance. I think they just talk about it. You see, in the book, Steve coaches a soccer team that he wants to scare on Halloween night, so he begs Carly Beth to tell him where she got the mask from the previous year, which she kind of reluctantly tells him after he steals the head. And then when he goes there and gets a mask, well, he still steals it, but it's still the old man mask, but as soon as he puts it on, it like latches to him and he can't take it off. And he's like, well, I might as well go try and scare these kids anyway. But when he goes over there, the kids are just like, do you need help, old man? We feel so bad for you. And so with his plan of scaring these kids kind of a wash, he just figures it's time to get this mask off. So he tries to find Carly Beth, and then she says, symbol of love. You got to find a symbol of love. And when he tries that, it doesn't work. So then they go to the store and then reunite the mask with the mask's suit. So that injects the new idea that each mask has its own kind of contingency plan to get it off of you. And with all the masks in the store, they all have their own kind of personality. So that's kind of cool. And then the book ends with Chuck showing up in his own mask that's stuck to his body, just engaging the story again. And even though the book was set up for a different kind of sequel, Stein didn't take that anywhere either. Actually, I'd like to see some of that in the episode. They kind of rely on the old mask, which I get it. I mean, it's a cool mask. Look at that. But, give us something a little different, Symbol of Love that worked for Carly Beth's story, but it didn't really work for Steve's story. So the sequel kind of rested on its laurels a little bit too much, but overall it kind of injected enough newness in there to kind of take a different spin on what happened to Halloween previously. So for our first sequel episode, even though it kind of treads a lot of the same ground, it still brings a lot of the same scares. I mean, the masks were pretty great, they're well made. The sound effects in this episode go crazy. The labored, gurgling breathing that Steve has is just perfectly disgusting in every way. Even like the skin morphing when they put the mask on, the way it like suctions to their face, that's really cool. And they made the original mask more of a formidable threat by letting it kind of operate on its own without being attached to a host, but it could also, like as a parasite, latch onto somebody against their will, and that kind of adds a new flavor of antagonist to it, But most importantly, the episode takes place on Halloween, and it has Halloween vibes out the wazoo, and I'm a big fan. I'm a big mark for Halloween activities in a Goosebumps episode. It always gets my goat. And so for that, I'm going to have to give Haunted Mask 2 5 out of 5 bumps. Check it out. It is a solid piece of fiction, and you will not regret it. So, with that, happy Halloween. I can't really talk in this thing, but it feels great, I'll see you guys on the next one. You stay tuned to Viewer Beware and VHSdinosaurGO. I can't really breathe in this thing. Let me just... Oh, man. I gotta deal with this. I gotta.
Do the duck walk, Carly Beth. I love that. It's gonna be such a great Halloween.